Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this session, and very sorry I'm not in person there and had some issues regarding my transfer from the UK. My name is Christian Nusser, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Henley Business School. And since yesterday, I'm at the University of Siegen, making my habilitation. Over the next 20 minutes, I want to discuss a phenomenon at the intersection of leadership succession, digital business, model innovation, and the future of public mobility. The paper I present today is entitled Business Model Innovation Under Transition: How External Succession Enables Digital Dispatch on Demand Services and Autonomous Mobility in Bus Operators. My study is a qualitative comparative case study research based on 12 German bus operators and 30 semi-structured interviews, and it's built towards a theoretical framework with implications for practice, policy, and management theory. Let's start to get a little bit a better feeling about that. At the beginning, I want to start with a question that motivates the entire study. We have the technology, real-time digital dispatch exists. On-demand routing platforms are commercially available. Autonomous vehicle pilots are underway in multiple European and especially also German cities. Yet, if you look at Germany's regional bus sector, we're talking about roughly 80,000 employed people and serves millions of commuters daily. Over 80% of operators still rely on manual or semi-digital dispatch. Only 12% of over any form of on-demand or on-responsive routing service. And the EU use 2030 targets for first autonomous transit deployments are approaching very fast. So the question is not whether the technology exists. The question is, why do some operators adopt it while others do not? That unlocks the capacity for digital transformation. What is the paradox this paper addresses? When I went to the literature for answers, I found three well-developed streams: research on CEO and leadership succession, research on business model innovation in established firms, and research on digital transformation in public transport. Each stream is rich, but they do not talk to each other. Succession research, for example, focuses on governance effects and performance outcomes. It largely ignores what happens to the firm's business model after the CEO changes. Business model innovation theory explains how firms reconfigure value creation and capture, but says little about what triggers the process of opening up. And last but not least, the digital transformation research in transport tends to focus on technology adoption rather than on the strategic and organizational conditions that enable it. This study sits at the intersection of all three. It asks, does external succession create a window of opportunity for digital business model innovation? And if so, how and through which pathways? Our central research question is, how does external succession shape the organizational conditions under which bus operators pursue business model innovations toward digital dispatch on demand services and autonomous mobility? This question is anchored in three theoretical pillars. First, business model innovation theory, drawing on Voss and Saby, who conceptualized BMI as a deliberate reconfiguration of value creation, delivery, and capture. Second, upper echelons theory, the idea from Hamburg and Mason that the characteristics and cognitions of top managers shapes strategic choices. External successors bring different cognitive frames, different networks, and typical a mandate for change. And third, socio-technical transition theory from the Giel's multi-level perspective, which help us understand how incumbent operators are positioned within an innovation landscape that is changing around them. Together, these frameworks lead us to expect that external succession creates a window of strategic opportunity, a temporary condition under which BMI becomes not only possible but likely. Our study is a qualitative comparative case study following the Eisenhardt's Yin tradition. I selected 12 German bus operators using maximum variation sampling, varying firm size from small regional carriers to large urban transit companies, ownership structures from public authority owned to private equity backed, and geographic locations across rural and urban settings. All 12 cases share one criterion: a documented external succession event between 2020 and 2024, followed by at least one significant digitization initiative. Data collection involved 30 semi-structured interviews, averaging 62 minutes each, with CEOs, operations directors, IT managers, and board members. Interviews were supplemented by 48 archival documents with roughly, I think, 1,000 pages. Within each case, I applied template analysis per king, using initial deductive codes from the theoretical framework and editing inductive codes iteratively in vivo. Cross-case analysis followed. Yin's pattern matching logic and theory building used abductive reasoning in the tradition of Tavoy and Timmermans. Theoretical saturation was reached after case 11. Let me now turn to the findings. I will present results in 3 parts. First, the mechanisms by which external succession functioned as window of opportunity. Second, the 3 digital innovation pathways that emerge through this window. And third, but not last, an integrative framework linking succession to competitive positioning. Let's start with the first finding. Concerns the mechanism through which external succession enables digital business model innovation. The core argument is captured in the key proposition on the right. External succession lowers the organizational cost of challenging incumbent business model assumptions. It creates a bounded window of opportunity for business model innovation that would not otherwise open. We identify 3 enabling conditions that operate jointly. First, it's cognitive unlocking. External successors arrive unburdened by path dependency. They are not invested in the logic that built the current business model. They bring cross-sector analogies from logistics, from fintech, from platform markets, and apply them to any industry that is largely been insulated from competitive disruption. Hambrick and Mason's upper echelons perspectives give us theoretical groundings here. Managerial cognition shapes strategic action. The opening quote on this slide is illustrative. A board member from case F told us the old CEO would never have hired a chief digital officer. The first thing the external successor did was bring in a CDO from Amazon Logistics. That is cognitive unlocking in practice. The second is network configuration. External leaders do not just think differently, they now know different people. New leaders grants access to technology partners, venture ecosystems, and digital consultancies that were simply invisible to incumbent management. In several cases, the new CEO's personal network was the direct origin of the firm's first digital dispatch vendor relationship. And third, the legitimacy signaling. External succession sends a public signal to the board, to investors, to employees that fundamental change is not only permitted but sanctioned from the top. This matters because business model innovation is regulated environments faces enormous internal resistance. Romanelli and Tushman's work on organizational transformation underpins this. Punctuated change requires a legitimizing trigger. External succession provides exactly that. The quote from operations director in case B bring it together. Then he came in from the logistics sector. He didn't know our excuses. He simply asked it, why isn't this automated? That question changed, in the end, everything. That single question, enabled by an outsider cognitive freedom network and legitimacy, set of a chain of business model innovation activity that transformed the operations service model within only 18 months. Second major finding maps the free digital innovation pathways that open up after external succession and, critically, identifies the conditions that determine which pathway an operator enters and in what sequence. The first pathway is digital dispatch. This represents a value creation innovation that emerged at the emergent stage. The transition is from paper and radio-based scheduling towards AI-assisted real-time fleet management and predictive maintenance. The key enabler here is the IT partnerships that the external successor brokers. Relationships with tech vendors that incumbent management simply did not have. This is the most widely adopted pathway. We see it in 10 of the 12 cases. It is the foundation on which all subsequent pathways are built. The second pathway is on-demand services. This is a value proposition innovation, a fundamental change in the service logic. The transition is from fixed routes, fixed timetable operations to app-based demand responsive routing. This pathway is enabled by the new value logics introduced by the external successor. The willingness to question whether a fixed timetables is actually what passengers need on low-density rural routes. We observe this in 7 of the 12 cases, always following the establishment of digital dispatch infrastructure. The third pathway is autonomous mobility. This is a value driver innovation. Value delivery innovation. At the most advanced level, transitioning from a conventional fleet towards autonomous vehicle pilot programs and mass integration. The key enabler is the long horizon risk appetite that new ownership structures, particularly private equity, bring to the table. This is the rarest pathway. Currently, 3 of the 12 cases are in pilot stage. It requires not just a new CEO, but a fundamentally different governance model willing to absorb regulatory uncertainty and long payback periods. Now, and this is theoretically critical, these pathways are sequentially but not inevitable. That is where the succession contingency comes in. Pathway adoption is moderated by 4 factors: firm size, ownership type, where PE-backed operators are consistently the fastest movers, the regulatory density of the VDV framework of the operators under and the successor's prior digital industry experience. Means 2 operators facing the same succession event may end up on a very different digital trajectories depending on these contingencies. The framework, therefore, does not predict a universal sequence. It predicts a conditional one. shaped by the governance and structural context of each firm. Now let's go to the framework. These frameworks synthesize both findings into a single causal chain with 5 stages. It begins with external succession, specifically the departure of a long-tenured internal CEO and the arrival of the external successor with a non-transport background. That biographical distance from the industry is not incidental. It is the mechanism as Hambrick, Mason, Helmich, and Brown establish. This triggers organization unlocking through the 3 conditions we identified: cognitive unlocking, network configuration, and legitimacy signaling. Importantly, this process is moderated by firm size, ownership type, and the successor's background, which is why 2 otherwise similar operators can respond differently to the same succession event. Unlocking opens the BMI window, a temporary opportunity to reconfigure the firm values creation, delivery, and capture logic. The word bounded here is deliberate. The window closes as new management becomes path dependent itself. Operators that do not act within roughly 18 to 24 months tend to lose momentum. Through that window, digital pathways emerge in a sequential pattern. Dispatch in 10 of 12 cases, on demand in 7, autonomous in 3. Again, moderated by firm size, ownership type, regulatory context, and the successor's prior digital experience. The endpoint is the competitive repositioning, from commodity bus operator to differentiated mobility player. This is the strategic price that external succession, when leveraged correctly, makes attainable. Okay, let's go to the meaning or to the implications for the different stakeholders. Start with the investors. Investors and private equity. Succession timing matters. Our evidence suggests that PE-owned operators with an active board achieve significantly faster and deeper digital BMI than publicity-owned operators with passive supervisory boards. The governance architecture shapes that becomes possible. For management scholars, we call for more research at the intersection of upper echelon and BMI theory. The CEO's role in enabling or blocking business model reconfiguration is systemically understudied. For bus operators themselves, do not wait for technology to become cheaper or regulation to become clearer. The window created by an external succession event is temporary. Operators who capitalize on it in the first 18 to 24 months post-succession achieve early mover advantages in data infrastructure, customer relationship, and regulatory dialogue that later adopters struggle to replicate. And last but not least, for policymakers, particularly at the VDV and ÖPNV level, incentive structures should be designed to reward digital innovation, not just operational compliance. Tendering frameworks that only evaluate cost and timetable reliability inadvertently penalize operators who invest in on-demand or autonomous pilots. Our frameworks offer at least one starting point. Okay, we have a lot of implications, but we also have some limitations. First, as always, geographic scope. All 12 cases are German operators. Germany has a specific regulatory architecture. The Personenbeförderungsgesetz, the VDV system, strongly labor relations with Verdi, replications in different national contexts. Say, I'm coming from the UK, post bus spec better, or Scandinavian models of competitive tendering would test the generalizability out of our findings. Second, retrospective data. Interviews rely on informant recall of events that in some cases occurred several years prior. We mitigated this through archival triangulation, but retrospective bias remains a limitation. Third, autonomous mobility pathways are in their early stages. Two of our three pathway free cases are still in pilot. We cannot yet say whether the succession-enabled autonomous succession enabled autonomous mobility projects achieve commercial scale. These limitations directly generate the future research agenda. We call for large and quantitative validation of the succession BMI relationship, longitudinal panel data that follows operators through full succession cycles and cross-sector comparisons. For example, with rail operators or urban mass platforms. Last but not least, let me close it with three core contributions. First, the study established external succession as an institutional window of opportunity for digital business model innovation and regulated mobility, not merely in governance event with performance implications. This reframes how we think about both leadership transitions and industry transformation. Second, we identify and theorize three sequential contingent innovation pathways: digital dispatch on demand services and autonomous mobility, providing a typology that practitioners and policymakers can use to map their own organization's position and trajectory. Third and last, we show that upper echelons theory, business model innovation theory, and socio-technical transition management are not parallel frameworks but complementary ones, and that their integration yields explanatory power that none of them has alone. Taken together, this research argues that the German regional bus transport digital transformation is not primarily a technology problem, it is a leadership and governance problem, one that becomes tractable at the moment of external succession. Thank you very much for welcoming me today, or not today, it's just a recording, but I would be happy if you have some questions or critical comments, maybe some skepticism, both about the methodology and about the implication. This paper is a work in progress paper, it's not yet finished, and hopefully I get some feedback from you, and maybe we can shape some of our arguments in the paper. If you would like to discuss further, please feel free to reach me at the email address on the screen, or maybe on LinkedIn. I would be very happy, and I'm working hard to get the first draft on ResearchGate shortly. I look forward to the conversation. Have fun, have a nice week, and thank you for listening. And now I'm a little bit over my time, but hopefully it's okay and you have some fun listening to me tonight. See you all, and I would be happy for feedback. Thank you.